Hello and welcome to your As Above message, taken from the Astrology of the moment, which right now is at the top of 2025. My name is Cawnawyn Mor. I am your astrologer. So do you remember a few weeks ago when we were all aware that winter was coming? In fact, do you remember a couple of years ago now, I guess it was a number of years ago, many of us who were Game of Thrones fans were always saying winter is coming. Is this too early for anybody? I was a big Game of Thrones fan. Forgive me, I promised you astrology. But I just wanted to echo this statement of winter is coming, because do you hear the prophetic doom in that statement? You don't even have to know what the show is about or the books to know what foreboding energy winter is coming feels like in the body, and this sort of cataclysmic events that it promises around every corner, and the monsters of winter that are said to be coming for us all. Well, have you heard that Pluto is firmly and definitively in Aquarius? Honestly, I'd be quite surprised if you hadn't, because I think most astrologers have been talking ad nauseum about it for years now. And we are here. We are in the midst of Pluto being in Aquarius. It's the age of Aquarius, the age of aliens. Have you seen the drones? Have you seen rebellion? We're here in the 5D revolution. You're coming or you're not. And we're leaving you behind because enlightenment, here we come. Right? It's the sentiment. It's definitely the talk. It moved back for its final move into Aquarius on November 19th of this last year, 2024. So why am I talking about this now? Well, today, Mars is making its second opposition. Now, Mars is in retrograde to Pluto. A really tough transit, to be honest. This is the god of war heading off with the god of the underworld, the god of death and transformation and rebirth. Pluto in Aquarius is here to change reality very fast for us. Lightning fast. Everything is changing, right? Well, except Pluto is a very slow-moving planet. So actually, whatever is changing is more signified by all of the personal planets that are making their first contact with Pluto as it has entered its new sign. And so the personal planets are talking with Pluto, they're talking to each other about Pluto, amongst each other, right? And lots of people lately have been asking me, all of this craziness, is this what Pluto in Aquarius is? And I have to remind them, have you heard that Mars is in retrograde? We just survived a Mercury retrograde. Venus is going to go into retrograde, right? Uranus is still in retrograde, as is Jupiter. And Uranus is Aquarius's ruling planet. So Pluto's new home, its rulership is going backwards. Mars has a far more immediate, frustrating, and exhausting and personal effect on what Pluto is influencing, and has certainly been felt in recent days and weeks as this year has begun. Mars retrograde does not end until February 23rd, so we're not quite halfway there. And the signs of Pluto in Aquarius are everywhere, right? I mean, we had all the drones, we've had the rebellion, we've had the war, the discourse, we've had the pyramid flattening before our eyes, the beginnings of global tyranny, although one could argue global tyranny has been around for an awfully long time. So where does one planet's influence end and the other one begin? And before we consider what Pluto is doing on a global scale, I want to invite you to search deep within yourself for a moment. Because earlier we talked about the sentiment of winter is coming, remembering the dread that those few words suggest about the danger lurking in the darkness. Now, our ancestors were no strangers to this sort of suffering. Winters especially, like in the far northern regions of our planet, were especially brutal, where children, the elderly, infants, animals died. Perished in the cold. Homes were destroyed, communities were spread apart and froze to death. Snow and ice buried villages, ruined crops, destroyed resources, laid waste to tools and shelters, and threatened total annihilation. Most of us have not ever had to experience the extremes of survival that our ancestors fought every day. The harshness of life was also not limited to their winters either. The threat of famine, rape, pillaging, plundering, taxation, abduction, corruption, robbery, servitude, slavery, and senseless violence and murder was a continuous reality for our ancestors. And they survived it. And here we are today, a testament to their endurance and their grueling work, their memory and their faith in something beyond themselves. And they had no idea that one day their descendants would be sitting, watching a very magical box, as people today speak messages from all over the world about the complexity and beauty of the human experience, and that we, safe in our air-conditioned homes and heated homes in the wintertime, surrounded by nourishing food that we can get at any time of year just by walking to another magical box that keeps food fresh and cold in our kitchen. They had no idea. And what a slow evolution it has taken to get us here. And this feels incredibly Plutonic to me, because even today we still say winter is coming, and there's this primal stirring inside of us that resonates with that danger. Pluto often manifests what we fear in the dark, that looming threat, the monster under the bed, the nightmare that we wake ourselves from screaming in the night, the sense of impending doom and total annihilation. Pluto must completely destroy all that it touches. Now we put Pluto in the icy sign of Aquarius, and you can imagine how the howling winds in the harsh terrain of the north during the winters inspired the imagery of the wild hunt in the frozen surrounding terrain, where the strength of beasts and gods must be what was roaming outside, as we lay shivering in our homes deep in the darkness. So now I want to ask you, what is your wild hunt? What is that terrifying idea of a wild hunt that lies out in the darkness just beyond your frozen window? Because lately, have you found yourself filled with dread, powerless in the face of doom, of death, of destruction of all you hold dear? And when faced with that, what do you instinctively do? Do you want to pursue it? To violently rip your teeth into it and destroy it and fight it? Do you want to run? Flee the danger and hope it doesn't follow you into the night? Do you freeze, unable to move or comprehend how to manage such a thing? Do you fall apart? Have the emotions spilled out of you and your breath is lost in gasps as you can't control your body as it shakes? That, my friends, is Pluto's first whisper. You see, Pluto embodies all that which we fear the most, and what we would prefer to keep back behind us, behind a black curtain, hidden in the caves of our subconscious, blurred in the messages from divine. But Pluto is here to teach us, to shine the light, to recognize that both light and dark must exist together, and that it is not our job to extinguish the light or to destroy the darkness, but that we must learn to integrate the two if we wish to truly empower ourselves, because winter is always coming. There will always be howling winds in the darkness. On a personal note, I was reflecting with a dear friend about the idea of village and how grateful I was to be a part of hers. And this feels like a very Aquarian concept, of course, because when we think of Aquarius, we think of brotherhood, sisterhood, community, humanity, of fellow brothers and sisters, and acceptance of all differences, of all the quirks and all the flaws and all the unique traits that make up the tapestry of our society. Because Aquarius's job is to look to the furthest of boundaries and welcome even those who live on the outskirts of what is deemed acceptable or appropriate to the general consensus of society. An Aquarian village is one that is accepting of all and gives equal influence to all participants, operating in perfect love and perfect trust to build towards a better, brighter future. I told my friend that while the idea of a village is a beautiful thing, the village itself does not always have to be beautiful. Because it's usually when I'm in my ugliest moments, like the migraines that I can't shake and the panic attacks late at night and the doubt in my ability to mother my children, the fear I have of losing my parents, the frustration I have with my peers, and the rage that overwhelms at the end of a long week. It's in those moments I truly need a village the most. The village can't serve if it's purely looking a certain way or just operating on the surfaces of life, only concerned with the joys and the highlights. It has to make room for all the expressions of life. A village has to work together because there's a shared faith in a future that could be better. And gosh, the future is here, isn't it? Jupiter in Gemini, Pluto in Aquarius, Uranus going to be moving into Gemini this next year. All these major planetary shifts are propelling us into, frankly, a world that nobody recognizes. Our skies flooded with drones and satellites, conspiracies amok. Our coworkers are on the phone with their AI girlfriends. Our kids are using ChatGPT to do their homework. Our Ubers are busy driving themselves. And our favorite inspirational speakers are actually just cloning themselves. Trucks are beginning to look like spaceships, and the guys running these companies are starting to act a lot like aliens and reptiles. So what are we supposed to rest our faith in a future if we don't even know what reality is supposed to look like next month? Ah, yes, Saturn has entered the chat. He's still swimming, or rather, perhaps drowning, in Pisces. Because how does one build a foundation in the crashing surf of all the powerful currents beyond our control? How does one build a faith in future that none of us can conceive? Okay, Cawnawyn, we get it. The stars suck. Say everything sucks. Can we move on now? Okay. I'll wrap this up. Where do we look? How do we proceed? What does all of this lead to? Well, last month we had a full moon in Gemini, and this year Jupiter is spending most of its trek through Gemini till it moves into its exaltation in Cancer in June, but not shortly before Uranus is entering Gemini for the next 7 years. So I'm looking at Gemini as a source of inspiration. And what does Gemini teach us? It teaches us that we need to objectively look at all the data and work on sharing and networking and relating to others. So how do we receive the resource that will allow us to see into the future? First, we must listen. And that means we also listen to the howling winds of Pluto and discover the truth of what lies in the dark. We listen to our Aquarian brothers and sisters who tell of their light and their dark moments. We listen to our inner Mars when it says, I'm in retrograde and I'm burnt out. I'm bitter, I'm hurt, and I'm angry. And I'm lost. And we recognize that everyone around us is also feeling this way too. And maybe that's why the world feels like it's lost its goddamn mind. Listening is a healing agent. It illuminates truth, and it invites us to pursue a deeper process. It builds understanding, and it strengthens all of us. We also must remember. And I'm not just saying that because remember is one of our re-words that we use for retrograde, which is absolutely relevant here too. All the re-words: rethink, reevaluate, resist, re-explain, relax, replenish, re-examine. Remember. Remember that those fears keep us awake in the night, that cold threat of coming winter and winters beyond, the inability to process how to manage that dread. Remember that that is Pluto whispering to us. So what happens when you shine your light out the door into the frigid night air? Can you lean in to the pain, to the dark, to the discomfort? Can you listen? What is Pluto's deeper invitation to you? What is left to be uncovered and illuminated? Great personal empowerment lies in clearly examining the threats in the dark, and great reward comes from the work that we dare to do in the shadows. So the wild winter is here and upon us. Together we can survive it. With the awareness comes the path. And I wish you all a pathway towards divine purpose and glory, for you are worthy and you are free. Blessed be, and blessed winter upon you.